The morning of June 8th, 793, dawned with the same quiet reverence that had filled Lindisfarne for decades. The monks rose early, wrapped in their woolen robes, murmuring prayers in the dim candlelight of their sacred halls. Birds cried over the surf, waves whispered on the shore. The holy island had long stood as a beacon of Christian faith and learning, a place so holy it was believed to be under divine protection. But protection would not come. On the horizon, shadows formed against the early mist. Dark shapes, long, low, and sleek, glided across the sea. At first glance, they might have been merchants, pilgrims, perhaps fishermen. But as they drew closer, the truth became hideously clear. These were no friends. These were Vikings, Norse raiders from across the North Sea, wielding axes, swords, and a chilling disregard for Christian sanctity. When the longships scraped against the rocky shore, chaos followed in their wake. The monks, defenseless and untrained in violence, were the first to fall. Some were cut down in their cells, others dragged screaming from the sanctuary. Sacred objects, reliquaries, chalices, crucifixes, were ripped from their altars. Manuscripts painstakingly copied over years were torn apart in seconds. Flames licked the edges of holy texts. The abbey was defiled. Lindisfarne had stood as one of Christendom's most treasured outposts, and now it was desecrated. Word of the atrocity spread like wildfire. In a time when monasteries were seen as inviolable, the attack shattered illusions across Europe. Alcuin of York, one of the greatest scholars of the age, wrote in stunned grief, "The pagans have desecrated God's house, poured out the blood of saints around the altar." It was unthinkable, and it was only the beginning. The raid on Lindisfarne marked a line in the sand, a clear beginning to what would become the Viking Age. For the next 250 years, Norse warriors would ravage, trade, and settle from the British Isles to the rivers of Russia. The fear unleashed that day would echo across the coasts of Europe, and towns would never look at the sea the same way again. What made Lindisfarne such a perfect target was exactly what made it so holy. Isolated, unarmed, and rich in treasures, it had no need for walls. It trusted in God. But the Vikings did not fear crosses or saints. They came for silver, and they came prepared to kill. In one morning, the sanctity of the island became its undoing. The psychological impact of the raid was as great as the physical destruction. Monasteries, once places of quiet study and prayer, began to resemble fortresses. Kings passed new laws to fund navies and militias. Watchtowers rose along the coasts. The term Viking would soon carry a new weight, not just a people, but an existential dread, a reminder that terror could come with the tide. Yet this horrific event also sparked centuries of transformation. The violent clash between Norse paganism and Christian Europe would, in time, lead to profound cultural exchange. Norse raiders became settlers, traders, and even kings. Their language seeped into English. Their laws and customs influenced those they once terrorized. The Viking Age was brutal, but it was also foundational. Today, Lindisfarne is serene again. Tourists walk through the skeletal remains of the monastery. The stones are quiet, but if you listen closely, you might still feel the tremor of that long-ago morning. The waves still break where Viking ships once landed. The wind still moves where monks once died. And the story of that day remains etched into Europe's memory. The raid on Lindisfarne was more than an attack. It was a wake-up call for an entire continent. It shattered illusions of safety and began a new era, one filled with blood, fear, but also connection and change. In the flickering light of that fateful morning, history took a new and violent turn.